Okie dokie, when you open Photoshop, we're going to start with a new empty file. Okay, we are going to create a new file and let's make this A3. Okay, so somewhere, here's our A3. Now, you'll notice when you select this, your A3 over here is vertical. If you'd like to work vertically, that's great. If you'd like to work horizontally, this is the easy time to switch that. Okay, your call. I'm just going to work with it vertically for now. Your decision. Make sure that this resolution is 300 pixels per inch, and that way we will have a lovely print when we're done with this, and the file size won't be super huge. The rest of this is all the default. It should be fine. White background will give us a nice blank surface to work on. And you can hit create. Full size A3 image at the right resolution for printing. Now you'll notice it's untitled. Let's save this blank because you should really get in the habit of saving your files. We are going to save this as a PSD file, right? So the default here is a PSD file. Make sure that that's what you see there. We're going to call this, Photoshop trials or workshop or whatever. Put your name on it, please. So I'm gonna put my name first. There we go. And then you have to figure out where you're going to put it. I'll put it on my desktop so I can find it later. And saving. Okay, now we have a file we can work with. Once you have saved your document and you have made sure that your workspace is essentials, it will probably look like this. If it's not, just hit reset essentials and you'll be all set. It'll look like this. Let me give you a little bit of a tour. The things that you will need specifically for working on this project are going to be your layers, which are down here. If you pop this up, you can also pull this out so that you can see them because you will have lots and lots of layers. And you can drag this down. You'll notice that this has a lock on it. This is your background. This is so your background doesn't move around. It also means you won't be editing it. That's okay. We're going to add things to it. The other tools are over here. Now you'll notice in Photoshop, anytime you're using Photoshop, if you hover over, it will give you the pop-out definition and a little bit of a tutorial about how to use it. So I'm not going to walk through all of these. What I would say is that anytime there is a little tiny triangle on a tool, it means there are additional components to that tool, aspects of it that you can use. We're going to end up using the paintbrush a little bit later, and just on this brush tool, not the other ones necessarily. Eraser tool we may end up using a little bit, and not much of the rest of these. So that's sort of where we're at. You'll also notice, like, I have a weird brush. You should not have a weird brush. General brushes. We're just going to do that for now. Great. Okay, that's the tour of the tools down the side. Always, always, always have your layers open. And the other thing that you will want are, move this to the side, properties are the other ones that you're going to want. Now, with these little tools, you can move them around and have your tabs anywhere you need them, so it's easy for you to see what you're working on. Once you have opened a couple of the textures that you want to work with, so Command O, go find the files, right, and then open them. Those are going to open as the JPEG files that they are. And in order to use them over here, the easiest way to do that is to select all, which is a Command A will let you select all, and then copy, Command C, just like you normally would, and Command V. Now you will see here that it comes in at a certain size. That's because at 300 pixels per inch, that's as big a picture as I get. If you start just pulling that around to make it larger, you're asking Photoshop to invent pixels. Now, the good thing for us is that Photoshop is not that bad at inventing pixels, okay? I'm going to hit return, and then I'm going to paste again. So now I have two. I'm going to blink one of these. I'm going to make this one bigger so that we can see what happens when we zoom in and we see the difference between this one and the original size. Okay. Oh, one quick thing. And this is where we get the basics down. The reason I'm able to see that blue outline is because I have show transform controls up here. This one, let's select this and copy. If I paste this in, this one is super huge, right? In fact, it's bigger than the paper at the resolution that I have. So I can make this large file smaller. I could also decide if it's larger here, I could rotate it and make that work. These are some options, right? So I can, oh, I did not rotate it cleanly. Straight, okay. Once you resize something, you lose the pixels that were in the original file. So making it bigger again later becomes slightly problematic. Now, we can see the gears on top because this layer is above this other layer. So whatever's on top is what you see, right? You can also create... Okay, let me back up for a moment. So whatever's on top is what you can see. Now, one of the things that you are seeing here that you probably aren't seeing in your work yet is that blue outline that lets you grab a corner and resize, right? Grab a side. And this keeps all the dimensions the same. In order to apply that hit return, right? You need this box checked off, and it's not the default. Super annoying, but you can fix that, right? You also have auto select the layer. So when I click on the bricks, it automatically selects this layer. When I click on the gears, it automatically selects this layer. So it tells you what layer you're on. You can only work on the layer that is selected, right? If I go grab an eraser right now, just to show you, and I erase like this, you will notice it has erased only on my layer 2, right? Not on layer 1. And I'm going to Command Z to undo. Command Z is your friend for all things. Okay, we have brought in images. We have resized images to make them smaller. We can, let me zoom in here and show you how both of these are sharp and crisp at this size, right? Because the gears had more pixels to start with. The bricks, if we resize to make that bigger, I'm going to copy and paste. Now I have 2. If I take this one and make it big enough to fit across, then Adobe, my Photoshop, has to invent the pixels to make that happen. And if we bring this down, you will see how one is perhaps a little less sharp than the other here, right? So when that prints, you may see that difference in the print quality. So just be aware, anytime you enlarge something, you run the risk of having a softness to that part of the texture that won't match the texture in the rest of your image. Something to bear in mind. Let me undo that. So now I have 2 of these that are the same size. Okay. Now, this is fine if I want the wall to be headed down in the left direction. If I want this to be headed in the other direction, my image, no, edit, trim. If I want to turn that to go the other direction, go to Edit, Transform, and here we have lots of different options, right? We're going to flip horizontal. Boop. So now you can see I have 2 textures that might go very nicely on a wall at a corner, perhaps. The other thing that we have, because maybe our line is not as even as we want it, we can go under Transform. These skew, distort, and perspective are going to be your friend. Now, perspective is where we can then, maybe it tilts up, maybe it tilts down. Now, it doesn't do it perfectly automatically, but these are some of the tools that you can use. Now I'm going to hit escape so I don't actually apply it, to make the textures match your building. Right? So that was perspective. Distort lets you move just one corner. So maybe there's some aspect of that that you need to pull to match where it goes in space, right? Maybe you have a wall that goes up like that and you only need so many of them, right? You can also copy and paste and stack a bunch of these, but the perspective on this, because the horizon line is right across the middle here, it's not going to stack evenly. If I put this up here, then you have like another wonky perspective line here. We also have the option to pull this across if it needs to go to a vanishing point that is either slightly down or slightly farther away, right? So there are some things to bear in mind when you are working with your images to distort them to match the architecture you plan on putting them on, or the landscape feature. So that was distort. We did perspective, we did distort. If we look at skew, again, hit return and it will apply that function. Edit, transform, skew. Again, this will let you maybe pull this out a little bit. It'll look like it's going back in space further, so perhaps you have a bigger area you need to cover. Again, every time we do this and we change the size and everything, it does go in and needs to invent some pixels for that. The more we distort it, the more pixels it needs to invent, so it's going to start to look a little bit softer and fuzzier at the outside edge. So just bear that in mind too.